word that's thrown around a lot these days, often given to too many, too soon, for too little, to the point where labeling someone a genius doesn't hold a meaning. But when I use the word here, it means iconic, in the truest sense of the word. The genius I'm speaking of is J Dilla. JD, Dilla Dog, James Yancey, a producer's producer, the king of beats. He left the world no doubt about his vision. Dilla is to rhythm what Coltrane is to harmony, a master who inspired every producer and artist who came after him. From Questlove to Pharrell, from Common to Kanye, he permanently changed the game for us, the hip-hop culture, and the world. It's his genius that must be passed on to the next generation. The Save the Music Foundation is proud to announce the J Dilla Music Tech Grant. Born from the Save the Music's 20-plus years of success building music programs in schools, the J Dilla Grant is the future of public school music education, steeped in innovation. It looks forward to unlock the creativity and confidence every kid needs to succeed in our world. Inspired by the genius of the one and only J Dilla, the J Dilla Music Tech Grant remixes and reimagines music education and delivers the future of music learning through innovative tech tools and curriculum. This revolutionary program teaches the fundamentals of electronic music creation, recording, and production, bringing out each student's inner creativity, talent, and confidence. Just like Dilla, the Music Tech Grant pushes what is possible with music to the next level. His invention and vision are woven into the curriculum. His heart and soul are the foundation of its mission. With the J Dilla Music Tech Grant, Dilla's legacy lives on to inspire the future.
Please join me in welcoming my Dukes.
How you doing?
I'm great, thank you.
Fantastic. We are so excited to have you here, and I know you know this, but for the folks at home and in the room, the plan is just to have a conversation and tell some stories, and then there's going to be an opportunity for questions from the audience and also questions on home from the folks watching virtually. So if you are streaming us, welcome. We're super excited to have you here. I know there's a few dozen folks last I checked online, so there will be time. So if you have questions, you can go ahead at home and throw them in the chat, and then in the room, we'll get started. So first question, Ma Dukes, how'd you get the nickname?
That was actually given to me by way of Frank Dink and Dilla doing a song titled Ma Dukes. Okay, I had no idea what it meant, but it's in a term of endearment, but it's actually international. And as I've found out traveling in the UK, they use
get
it quite a
the
bit.
mic a little closer. So
Yes, sure. I don't want the okay.
That's all right.
Yes, but definitely it's an international term of endearment, meaning mom, got your back, whatever, the one that's always there, and so I embrace it.
I love it. And again, the first time Chio was like, oh yeah, let's have a call with Ma Dukes, I was like, hello, Maureen. It took me a moment to feel comfortable calling you Ma Dukes, but I love it now. So we are really excited to be here in Detroit, and I know you and your family have roots in Detroit and associated with Detroit. So can you just kind of talk a little bit about your connection with the city of Detroit?
I was born and raised in Detroit, and so was my mom. And my grandfather came here at the age of 14 from Baltimore, hopping trains. Okay, he met my grandmother, and that's where it began. So we have been rooted here in Detroit for over 100 years, the family line, the Cornish, to the Hayes, to the Yanceys.
Amazing.
And then, yes.
Well, thank you for welcoming us to your city. We're excited to be here.
I'm loving Detroit as always. I'm not in Detroit at the moment, but I embrace it still. I'm back and forth. My daughter's still here, and many relatives and friends.
Excellent. So I read somewhere that, when I think of growing up, like you must have been into Motown, but I read that you actually were into opera and classical music, and I'm wondering if that's true. And then I'm thinking, fast forward, how does the mom of J Dilla start being into opera and classical music, and where does that go? So is that true? And what was your musical upbringing with your family?
My musical upbringing, at first, yes, it is true. Okay. My desires and my likes and dreams started started with opera and classics because it was something that embraced me as a young child. It was something, you know how you have that security blanket and the sounds and things that you hear soothe the soul. And Leontine Price was my go-to person, as well as Nina Simone, who gave me my cry, and I feel you kind of thing. You know, I had 145 that I embraced as a Christmas gift, and it lasted for years. I don't know what happened finally. One of my siblings probably hasn't confessed that they removed it in some type of way. You know, they played flying saucers with my album of Leontine Price. So, and I couldn't catch it, you know, fast enough, but it never seemed to break. But my mother loved country music, and of course she was a Motown fan. Everyone else in the family loved Motown, and it was something that you just were born and bred. If you were Detroiter, you definitely embraced it because that's what it was. Street corners, you know, you hear the sounds and people that mimic the, you know, the artist, and it was a way of life. I think Detroit was a hardworking town, and I think the beauty of some of the richness of Motown came from the strife, struggles in the real life, things that were going on that they sort of kind of put out there in the music. And you can, you know, kind of feel it and you understood where it was coming from, you know. Love is like has many facets. It's not just happy love all the time, you know. It's love and something maybe it's gone bad, but it's still a form, and we have to learn how to nurture it, embrace it, and deal with it. So everyday life is about what it is, I think, in my opinion.
Absolutely, really well said. So, you know, your son James comes along, J Dilla, and you know, we probably have all seen videos of how he, you know, humanized beat making in the MPC, but like it takes us back to the early years. I mean, when was it obvious that he was into music? When he was, you know, 2 and 3? You know, we would love to just hear any stories that you have of him, you know, growing up in the early years.
Well, Dilla always was music. You know, I thought that maybe as he got older it would change. I intervened and tried to establish that because mothers worry about what are you going to do when you get older. And you see people that start out singing and they don't never make it to the big time. So you don't want that. You want something like definite that they can put a career behind or survive in the world, you know. And music's not always for everybody. Everybody doesn't get out the gate. So I didn't want that, you know. And so I tried to push him in other ways. But at 2 years old, he spun records right downtown here in Harmony Park. And so it was like his way to get out, get fresh air. His dad worked at Ford Motor Company, Highland Park. And, you know, he was there and until he, you know, left Ford's and retired there after 40 years. But Dilla had to go outside. We had a restaurant inside the Milner Hotel, which is now, I think, the Ashley or something like that, okay, condo. But our restaurant is still part of that hotel that we had. We did the Milner Grill after a while, and it was rough, you know, raising toddlers and still having a restaurant, working from 6 a.m. to 7 p.m., you know, every day, and still going home and cooking a regular family meal was kind of like rough. However, Dilla had to have outdoors, you know. You couldn't just like keep a kid locked up in an apartment with babysitters while you know, running a restaurant. So his good behavior meant that he could go to the park. People used to go to Harmony Park, sit there right around the corner from the music hall. It was a little island there with a little step down, you know, little part, and you could see each other and on different like little benches or just the concrete. People eat lunch and just talk and have a seat. And Dilla started spinning records. Well, he was a little 2-year-old. He wore his cap to match his sunglasses, to, you know, and match his jacket, all because he cared about what he dressed like then. Even as a 2-year-old, he wanted to look like a little man. So we bought a little man jacket, and I was more than happy to do that and get him ready for, you know, when his dad would come home. I'd still be in the restaurant, but his dad would come home from Ford's, and he'd take him down to Harmony Park to spin records. 45s on his little arm, just stick his arm through there, it was that small, and have his Fisher Price, you know, and Fisher Price is ready with the batteries and everything, and he'd go to Harmony Park, and they spent hours spinning records. And he wasn't the kind that spun children's records. He spun Motown. And even though he couldn't read yet at 2, he knew the records that people were asking. Well, you have. On my chance to be there with him, like on Saturdays when the restaurant would close, I either had someone to step in and I could get a little breath of air. They would ask for certain artists, and I'm looking at the people, and I don't question it, but I'm like, why would they ask him that? Because he's not reading the labels, but he knew what they wanted many times. So I didn't say anything because I wouldn't even know. I didn't know all the artists. But for some reason, maybe they had been asking for certain songs at different times that I wasn't there. So I didn't say anything, and they'd be just as happy. And I think he watched the expressions on people's faces when they got the music played that they requested. And I think he began to learn how they would feel. And he wanted to give more of that. And it was something that I guess built up the things that he had inside of him. You know, at that time, I thought it was just something, a passing fancy. But at Christmas time, and we'd ask every year, what do you want for Christmas? And it never changed. I want another record player. I want a bigger record player. You know, and when he got about 6 or 7, he wanted a turntable. And then by the time he was 9, he wanted 2 turntables. And then by the time he got 11, he wanted a beat machine. And, you know, that was very, you know, very low-key and small. But at that time, he had learned how to 2-track on cassette tape, because his dad put 5 tracks on a cassette tape, just doing different parts, as he was an a cappella singer with a jazz group here in the city for a long time. So he learned techniques from his dad, and he just did different things in his head with them. You know, he had like a library in his head, and he could hear a tune and imagine what something else that he had stored in his head would sound like, infusing that. And this was part of his creativity. And he was not afraid to test it beyond what other people did. He had no ceiling. So that was one thing that brought his sound. And I think most people that are Dilla fans know his sound. And people try to mimic it, but they know straight out if it's a Dilla track. Because I didn't realize it at first myself, but you definitely can tell his sound from others. And but it came up as a fusion of different types of music he was introduced to in his youth. He sang in church in the choir. He was, acolyte and carried the thing, the cross, all that kind of stuff in his upbringing. So he had the full spectrum of music, but each is part of the other. And I think he understood that you only got so many notes. It's what you do with them and how you hear them, you know, when you play. And he played instruments. The first instrument he learned to play was the piano, and then he wanted drums. By the time he got to school, now he was doing piano at 5, but when he went to school, Atkinson Elementary School, which is now Legacy, I believe, charter school, they introduced him to the violin. And of course, he played that. And his hunger for music of all kind, he would do. By the time he got to junior high, he wanted to play drums because they had a full spectrum at Farwell, but there was no drum equipment for him. And Miss McConnell, his music teacher, said, well, James, if you will play for me and play the cello, which no one wanted. And he's small in stature. So one thing, it wasn't the instrument of choice for many students. They weren't looking that direction. And she said, if you play that for me this year, she said, I promise you I'll let you do drums next year. So he was like sold. He was like, well, okay, because that's what he wanted to do. And he picked up the cello. But the problem we had was it took longer for him to get home from school because he would cut through alleys to get home. He didn't want anybody to see him carrying the cello because he had to take it home to practice. And I was wondering, what is wrong? Because my mind is like, what's the problem? And we caught him driving. His dad was home once, and we were trying to find out what happened and where was he okay? And nobody knew where he was at. Everybody else was home, and he was cutting through alleyways because he didn't want anybody to see him carrying a cello home. But he had mastered it in weeks. So after a couple of months, he was playing in high school graduations at Osborne and everything. And I went to see him at a concert at, the one at Kettering, okay, on Van Dyke, yes. And he loved the sound, but he didn't want to be caught with it. You know, it wasn't the cool thing to do. Like, it wasn't cool, Mom, to tell people what he got on this report card. All three of my kids told me, said, please don't ask us to stand up in church when they say stand up for your report cards, because it's just not cool. And so I had to, like, suppress myself because I was proud, you know, but they were like, it's not cool, Ma, it's not cool, you know.
I get that. I'm a trombone player, so I understand fully, you know. Not the coolest instrument to walk
Yes,
around
it
with.
wasn't. No, you don't want anybody, you know, because, you know, they already think he's a nerdy boy, you know, and he's small in stature, and he's carrying this big cello, and he's all over the place and doing stuff, but he was introverted, so he didn't have that strength of character yet, you know. It was all inside, you know, yeah.
Well,
yeah.
my next question was actually about his experiences in school music. A lot of the participants in this conference are music educators in some sense, or they work with future music educators,
Yes.
or so it's interesting to hear that he had, you know, kind of a really broad musical upbringing. It wasn't
Yes.
just kind of spinning that led to electronics. So that shift to electronics, I'm wondering, you know, at some point you recognize the drive, and it's like, this is what he's going to do. Whether as a mom, I want him to do something that might come with health insurance, or, you know, a more secure job.
Yes.
If you're not in the States, I'll explain how that works later.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
It's very sad. So when he started bringing in early beat machines, what was that transition like? And, you know, how was his kind of passion that then fueled into what I think a lot of us know him for as a you know, beat maker producer? Do you remember kind of those early beat machines before maybe the Akai MPC, and his kind of musicality went from spinning other people's music to kind of creating his own?
Well, I didn't know at that time that he was already creating his own. I just wasn't, you know, letting on a secret that he was making beat tapes and playing and doing house music parties for people, because he didn't talk about it. I was pushing him at that time to try to get his mind changed from the music thing. I insisted that he go to Davis Aerotech, and he didn't get it, that I was trying to get him under a different umbrella. I said, well, there was one student picked out of every junior high school each year. And when I found out that he was the one that the school was going to let go to Davis, which would give him a years of college credit already when he graduated high school. So I'm like, oh, he's going. So, you know, and we kind of bumped heads. And I told him, I tell you, if you go just 1 year, just 1 year. He said, I'm not going to. I said, it doesn't matter, just go 1 year, and I promise you, you can go to Pershing with your friends, you know, and go where everybody else is at. And then that year came, the end, and I got the report card, and he was acing everything, and I was just so excited. And he said, well, Mom, he said, now can I go? I said, well, you said you wouldn't like it, but you got A's and all this stuff that I've never been able to do, I said, and you're going to have a year's college. Yes, but you told me. I said, just try it 1 more year. And he, you know, and so we didn't speak like lovingly. He had nothing to say. He did what his mom said. However, he managed some type of way to disc jockey a party every 2 weeks at the school. So that was his saving grace, you know. And so our thing was, I said, well, you know, you don't like it. I said, but if you stay just this year, you like wearing Dockers pants and silk shirts. I'll buy you every silk shirt you want. And so I did. I kept my word. But and he was DJ Silk at Davis Aerotech. But I had no intention of it going like that. Mm-hmm. You know, I wanted him to embrace it. He did great, and was working on, you know, panels for the, you know, airplanes and everything. And I'm like, this is the job. You know, you go lab week to learn how to work the airport and build things and everything, and then you go academically the next week. He was skipping school to come home to prepare for sessions at Amp Fiddlers for musicians that were coming in for studio work. Amp had showed him how to do that, and he was engineering for sessions. And I was like, I'm thinking that he's going to learn something and that he's going to be at school the next day. And I confronted him. He said, well, Ma, I'll just have to suffer the consequences because it's going to be music. And I'm like, and I'm standing there and I'm in shock that he said it. He's standing face to face with me. And I'm like, even if I beat him down, he's still going to do this, you know? Because I was the one that said I would do the spanking in the house. His dad would just, you know, and sometimes they tell me, I'd rather you hit us, and then, you know, than to hear him a month later still talking about it. But I knew full well how music helped academically. I knew that it would take care of anything that was bothering you. And music has such a profound effect on what we think and how we feel about ourselves. Mm-hmm. And it broadens the mind, and it makes you want to learn more. It makes you want to do more. And it builds up inside you, and you realize that this person that you are now today is so much greater than what you're even looking at in the mirror. And it has that effect. And these are the things that we don't want to miss. And I just was hardcore, that parent that wanted just a straight and narrow, you know, I wanted a doctor, a lawyer, and things like that. Just like with my daughter, I wanted her to finish law school, and she gets a year before that and decides she wants to change careers. And I'm like, but she's doing this. And I'm thinking, you're doing this, you know, I'm thinking, it really, in my heart, this is for the both of us. But I have to realize she has to be happy in what she's doing. And she's another introverted person, but genius on her own level. And so I'm like, I don't really get it all because I'm not like really mentally where they are. And but my own thing with the music, I truly understand. And it's such a greatness in every young person that is born into this world, that they come with gifts. And parents just have to listen. Dilla used to tell me, lady, you gotta listen better. I thought I was the greatest listener ever. You couldn't tell me I didn't listen because whenever they call my name, I'm listening. But at one time I was so busy with my daycare business, I didn't understand that, you know, that I was just like on a drive and building this business, and my children still needed me. But they saw the growth and what it did for me and what I was doing, and they didn't bother me. So that was a bad on my end. I can't make up for that. But I do realize that listening is not just saying, yes, what do you want? But it's seeing as well. To look at your child and spend a moment looking at them and wondering how was their day and if they're happy doing what they are doing, and what would you rather do if you weren't doing this? What would you be doing today if you had your way? And really caring about, you know, where are they at in their life? Are they using the tools that they came with? Because they're all gifted. We just haven't pinned it down yet. They might know, but be afraid to say. And that happens a lot. I talk with young people now and they're into music, and it's like a freedom because it allows them to feel some of what they are and not be judged by it, you know, because it's not what the parent thought or talked about when they were little. He's going to grow up and he's going to be this, you know. But it's so many wonderful things.
Absolutely. I mean, and that really, I know, resonates with a lot of folks here who are working with students whose musicality might lean more towards beat making and popular music, yes. And that's not always recognized as, you know, the certain types of music in schools, exactly. And so I know that resonates with a lot of folks here. Also having conversations with your mom about doing popular music instead of, you know, a real job. So one of the cool things is, as someone who, you know, engages in popular music things, I can't go a week without watching some kind of interview or performance where people talk about Dilla's influence on their life. And this is especially true with Questlove, and I know that you have a long relationship with Questlove, and I wonder if there's a story or a memory or some kind of musical connection that kind of pops into your head when you think of Questlove and the experiences that you've had with him as a musician.
Well, I've had more of a, say, down-home experience with him, because whenever he would come to Detroit to work with Dilla, it could be during the holidays from Thanksgiving through the end of the year. The house would be absorbed with artists flying in to complete their albums or assignments. They'd have deadlines, And Dilla always was very keen on keeping the deadlines in his head, that they had to have their work completed. And he never wanted anybody to go into a time where it was strained, because they had to, first off, get the project they finished accepted by the board, whoever writes the checks, they have to approve of things. And I realized that when he talked to me about, for instance, with Common, project was wonderful. He was very proud, and when he gets back to the label, they're humming and hawing and suggesting, not knowing, because they're not the public that's buying or not in the crowds that are fans, what the fans really want. And maybe take the piece, one or two pieces out of the project that's very dear to the artist's heart. And I think Common's first gold record, it came because he took Dilla to the meeting with him at Geffen. And they sat around and listened to different tracks or whatever. And I think he felt more confident about what he had done. He had Dilla with him, and he could explain anything about why this album should be presented the way it was and what it meant on different spectrums, and what how you give something for everyone, and you want the public to buy it. You want everyone to. You want to have something for everybody, not just a small group. And that album went gold, but it was because he had backup. And Dilla told me, well, sometimes it goes like that because the people that are writing the checks, they really don't have a real keen understanding of music or what different types or genres of music should have. But the artist knows in his soul what he's doing. And he knows he's out there, he's doing it. And Common doing double fold, because at that time he was a b-boy once, and he's still doing that too on the stage, so he's giving double fold. And look where he's at now. Mm-hmm. So it's something like that. But with Questlove, everyone would come, and after everyone had left and gone back and had their albums completed or their works done, he stayed 7 extra days. It's always 7 days. I would count the days. I'm running daycare, so I'm like, okay. Because that means I got to stay out of the way. We bowled a lot at that time in the family, so that meant that we just do practice bowling and give them the piece of the house or whatever all day and in the evening. And I was on call, plumber, maid, and cook, short order, So whenever guests were coming, I was the go-to person. I go to the market. I knew that Common was a vegan, but he liked sweets. I had to find something that was appropriate, that he would be afraid to eat, and I'd be out in Grosse Pointe getting the cookies that I had found that he fell in love with, and he loved them and looked forward to that. I'd be getting the stuff for Erykah Badu, who was another, looked like, to me, I guess he was eating arugula, but I wasn't familiar at that time what it was. But I had supplied these things in the different teas. And Questlove and Dilla, at the end of the day, were still there, and I'd be supplying things for them. They didn't eat much. They were in tune and drumming. And it'd be 2 sets of drums, but I didn't know that Dilla was drumming along with him, because Quest would bring his drums, and he also gave Dilla a set of drums to use. So he would do that, and they'd be in there from sunup to sundown, nonstop. There was a brotherhood of meeting of the minds with them, with the drumming. And so, yes, Questlove, he talks about it now, that he learned traditionally how to play drums, but Dilla changed that format, and it gave him something else in a different way to hear. And I think that it's always been there for a lot of artists, but when we learn as a young child by rote, and then we gravitate and let it become part of us, we forget about taking those chances and going outside the bar, to add to it. And so it's in your comfort that you've already made it, that you can do these things. Questlove is like dedicated, and he's dedicated that he will give back. But he's also introverted and doesn't talk. And after the parties and everything, and everybody goes backstage, he goes home and lays down, and he's just a different type of person. Very serious, but very much in love with music, you know, and takes it very serious. Because I had to talk to him once about it. Someone made a comment, well, my Dukes, I heard that Questlove doesn't like posthumous music. And I'm like, what do you mean? Because he hasn't checked me on it yet. He hasn't called and said, well, Ma, whatever, you know. So he explained, you know, he just didn't want to ruffle any feathers any kind of way because his relationship with Dilla was so pure and dedicated. And he admired him as the artist that he was, just as Dilla did him. You know, they all had their go-to person, and the person they looked up to. One of Dilla's persons that he looked up to was Pete Rock. They challenged each other each evening and call and say, I want you to hear something, and just knock them off their boots, you know. And so it was like, well, I'm going to call him back in a couple of days. I got to come up with something. And so it was always like a mad fire going. But the fact of the learning instruments and listening and experimenting with different things, or anything that came out, was something, it was a challenge to your music. Dilla never used, he had a Pro Tools studio done. MCA had that, was part of the deal that he had with MCA. And he never used it to its full capacity of which it was built. And Mike Cheveria installed that studio for him. And he told Mike not to do it at full capacity. He wanted to leave a space for his own mind to infiltrate and to add. He didn't want it given, because we got something greater here. Sometimes we don't use both sides of our mind now. And man hasn't created the all in all, so you have to challenge yourself. And I think that's what that was about. He wanted to make sure he was going to be creative to it, and he never was satisfied, because even when he finished a project, he would question, but can it be better? Some things he put back and he said, I'm going to come back to that, because it was something that he wasn't like, it can't get any better, you know. He was always, you know, and it was, for him, it was never about the money or prestige, and he didn't care, and Grammys and things like that, he didn't care. But what it meant was, do they feel it, and do they like it? Because if someone's, then he questions that again, what should I have done to it? So, you know, it's always room, but he, you know.
Yeah, and that's really interesting. I think one of his many great contributions is the idea of humanizing beat making and not just kind of quantizing everything and locking it in so that it all sounds perfect, but not connected to the human. Yes. And you know, more than a decade after his unfortunate passing from lupus, he's still kind of as influential now as he's ever been. And is there something that you can attribute that kind of longevity of his legacy continuing to impact and influence, you know, beat makers and producers? And I mean, people are trying to drum like Dilla, or to recreate, as you said, not exactly as kind of successfully maybe as Dilla was able to do that. But what are some of the reasons you think that people are still kind of, you know, his legacy carries on in music making today?
I truly believe that because people know that his sound was different, that's one thing. They want to know why. They want to know what he was thinking. People have asked me, what was he thinking when he did this? You want to know, is there something special or particular that would make you go beyond what you think is good already? I think that children of today are born with a greater understanding of how to infuse things, because their minds are expanding and they have so much more to go by. Parents are not regimented as much as before, but they're still regimented. And I think every parent wants that doctor, lawyer, or whatever, you know, a businessman that, you know, but are some afraid. But some beautiful things are that musicians that have been carrying legacies in music all these years are not afraid to let their offspring try it and to support them in it. And I believe that even someone that's just getting into music, if you have the right support system, then you all let it soar. And I think a lot of our young people today come with, they're ready. They're ready to challenge the Dilla thing. You know, it's just about expanding the minds. We all have that power. And we all came with great gifts, but do we choose to nurture it is the question. If we nurture it, are we going to be shut down by our parents and say, well, no? Example, Paul Rosenberg, Eminem's attorney, and big businessman. He was down in my house rapping in the night at 6 o'clock, just like Eminem was. And is good. He's very good. However, his mom told him in high school, oh, there's not going to be any of that. You're going to law school. And that was it. There was no questions, no eyebrows, no nothing. You already know that this is what you're going to do when you're growing up, and we haven't changed our minds. I don't know what you were thinking, kind of thing. So, yes, we allowed you to go around with him, and you go to Dilla's and whatever, and you're going to be good, and they didn't worry about him when he was there. One thing I liked about them, they were always punctual and mannerable. They were there every day, 5:45, waiting for that daycare to close so they can get in there at 6 o'clock. And, they were always on time, so we appreciated that. And but the thing is that he could have had the best of two careers had he not went into law. But, that being said, they knew that they had a gifted son, but they had designs, and a lot of us have designs for what we bring forth. Not saying that we shouldn't, but that's a living human being with a mind of its own, and we don't know how much greatness in it or what they have to offer the world. But every child has a gift to bring into this world. They don't just come to take up space. They come to give and to challenge and to share. And gifts are made to be shared, not to be hoarded.
We can applaud for that. Amen. And as a mom, the fact that Dilla's MPC is in the Smithsonian, that probably helps ease some of the, he didn't become a doctor or a lawyer. So I'm going to drop my phone, and then I'm going to look at the time. This is such a treat for me, but I'm going to ask one more question, then I want to open it up to maybe some questions from the audience, and then folks online, if you have a question, you can throw it in the chat, and we'll read that. So what's kind of next as kind of the face of the Dilla Foundation and unreleased music and kind of thinking like what do you see the next handful of years looking like with because I know there is some unreleased things and you're probably finding access to more and more things. What can we look forward to in the next couple of years?
You can look forward to more Dillas being bred through the Save the Music program, because we're unleashing this imaginary chains off of these young people's minds and allowing them to create and to give us and to show us what they have. All the great musicians and artists of the past that are still profound artists and that will never be challenged as far as greatness, these kids are coming with it. Mm-hmm. Some of them as early as a couple of years old are just like America's Got Talent. Young families are breeding and breeding because the parents have grown up on some of the music of these great, profound people, and they share it. You share it without even knowing it. Just singing lullabies and singing songs while you're cooking and doing things in the house, children pick up on it, and they come with greatness. And they're imagining, gee, if they had done this would sound like this. We don't know how great this world would be. And because we're beginning to allow our children to breathe and be, we're just waiting. We're just waiting. There is no end of it. I think that because of the book Dilla Time and the exposure, that it will never stop, and it's always something we can look forward to. A film about Dilla. We can look forward to documentaries to share and things like that. But definitely, what I'm looking forward to is parents to not be afraid to allow the children to educate themselves more. Music is education. It's therapy. It's food for the mind and for the soul.
Absolutely. Couldn't have said it better next. So I want to open it up to, let's give a round of applause before we do some questions. It's been such a treat just hanging up, and I hope people are taking pictures and sending them to me later, because this might be as cool by proximity as I ever get. So any questions from the house? We'll start with maybe a question in the room, and then turn it over, maybe grab a question from online. Does someone have a question for Ma Dukes? Yes, thank you.
One, just so
you.
I'm really excited because you were talking a lot about that creative needs thwarting. And so, as educators, we're balancing like what we're mandated to do, right? And how can we push the envelope where our students feel they can embrace those innate talents that they have, right? So I was wondering if you could share just a few words of wisdom again about how do we start to throw away being fearful of the unknown or being fearful that like we want what's best for a kid because this is what's going to make money. We're worried about health insurance and all that stuff. But outside of that, how can we make space for our students to do what they're really freaking good at?
And give me a second. I'm going to try to restate that for the at-home people who maybe couldn't hear it. But how do we balance expectations, especially as music educators, between curriculum and expectations while also allowing students to think outside the box and harness their creativity, but also we need to have a rubric and assessments. And so, what are some opportunities maybe to allow students to, hopefully I'm rephrasing this, just for those folks at home who might not have been able to hear the question.
Okay. Very simple. Have someone with patience, with a love of music, first with a love of people and the students. Be able to meet them where they are and to listen. If they're not afraid to let you know what's within or what they think, and they don't think they'll be judged by it, you'll see the beauty and they won't be afraid to show you. You'll be just knocked off your heels every time. I've listened to some youth in the past week on a Zoom call, and I was just like, my jaw dropped. I couldn't even wait to talk to each child about what they had brought forth and where they were going. And these were beginners, 8th, 9th graders, and the 12th grader. And it's like they're professional people I'm listening to. They sound as great as some of the greatest, and I listen to all genres. And I'm blown away because just in one semester, the freedom to challenge self and to allow someone to hear what they can do and imagine what is even greater, and they just begin. If we care enough about the future of our children, whether they stay in music, one thing parents need to understand is, however, is that don't be afraid of music, because in the production of music, there's so many other occupations. There's lots of jobs in music, in production, and you don't have to be the artist. You don't have to be a rapper. It's many, many high-paying jobs in music. You just have to want to do it. It's a real career, high-paying career with travel benefits and lots of other good things, But most of all, it gives you a joy in what you're doing. It matters if someone's listening and supports you in what you're doing. And parents need to learn just to wait a minute, because maybe that's not what they want to do, but at least let them try it. Because if they don't feel great about what they're doing and feel that they can even bring it about better, they'll go to something else. They won't give up. But it's knowing that you're there and you got them and that you appreciate what they're doing. Because it's nothing like having a young person feel broken down, shoved away, or I don't want to hear this, and being made to do something that you think is good for their life, but you don't have to live that life because yours is already done. Think about the brighter future for that child that you love, and you want to show love by support and by listening. As Dilla even told me, lady, you need to learn how to listen. And I thought I was listening at every hand because we were always this close. But I could have listened better. That meant that I would have sooner than later in his years, early years, understood how much it meant for him to be able to pour himself into what he did. Because this is truly what he was. Dilla came as a gift for a short period of time, but he gave the works that will last lifetimes. And for right now, it's so much music that's unreleased, that has not been released, masters that will go on from early years that people are just waiting to get their hands on. We will never stop hearing Dilla. And I don't know how many of you have heard the Suite for My Dukes, but that's chamber music. It's Dilla's work put to chamber music by a 60-piece orchestra. And it is mind-blowing. There are no copies you can get, of course. I told Miguel Miguel Atwood Ferguson is the conductor and the composer of that. But he does this still globally, and he works with 7-piece orchestras creating the thing, 25-piece, 60-piece, whatever you want. And I'm planning on doing something for Dilla's 50th birthday using Miguel and bringing it back to the public. But it's something that you can watch on YouTube free. I think it's broken down into 4 parts because it's intermission and whatever. But it just gives you the scope of what a young person can do without formal training, even because they come already with their minds ready. James didn't have formal training for every instrument. He did for piano and for drum and for cello. But any other instrument, he was able to pick up, take to a room like his sister's flute, go upstairs to his own space, ask for her music book, come back down 10 or 15 minutes, and play the whole book for us, and just blow us away. And I'm jealous because everyone plays instrument in the house with me, so I was like, I always felt a certain kind of way, like, what am I missing, or where am I coming from? I never learned. And they tell me, they say, well, you can sing, that's your instrument. Not the same, okay? But to be able to pick up something else beautiful that you hear and listen, it makes you feel good. And it could give a message to the whole world, because music gives messages to the whole world, to yourself, but also to others. The message you get when you go, if you're a churchgoer, and the music that you hear, and it's soothing, and it's for the mind and the soul, and you take that home from church, but it lasts all week. It lasts, and you go back waiting to beat the door down to get in there next Sunday to fill up again. Just think, if this is what you do, how full your life and what you give to the world is. It's amazing, and it's forever going. So this is what we're doing. We do for our children what we want the best and the most for every one of them. And not just the ones you give birth to, but the ones you see each day when you're teaching and you're sharing and you're letting them know that what they have to bring and what they're thinking about is something that the world needs. You are the tool that decides whether or not the world is going to enjoy this or whether they're ready. Sometimes the children are ready and we're not, but that's that listening thing. And meet them where they are and let them know that there's a time. Dilla told me this. Lady, there's a time for everything. Because I would get upset because he would spend so many hours working with artists that made it out of the gate before him. And I'd say, why are they doing this? And why, and why are you? And he said, don't worry about that. It's a time for everything. And all I could do was, it kind of like clicked, because even in the Bible it tells you that. Season for everything, right? So I had to remind myself, okay, quit with the chatter, lady, and know that he's speaking truth, and there is a time for everything. But right now is the time for our young people to be exposed to the beauty of what they bring into the world and to share with us. The world does need healing, we all agree, and music is the best forum to do it. It'll get their mind straight. Speaking of Miguel Atwood Ferguson that did this Suite for My Dukes, Dilla's music, as it was, got him through college. And this is why he dedicated this piece to Dilla and to me, because it helped him. So many people, thousands of people, where I go, it doesn't matter whether it's overseas or here, they come and they tell me what Dilla's music has done for them. It's been a healing tool for many, sometimes desperate situations. It brings them back from the brink of something not good, and makes them realize that there is another tomorrow. But it soothes and it helps strengthen the mind and gives you that going spirit. Okay, a better tomorrow. And this is what it does for a lot of people. A lot of people tell me that it really helped them get through the finals in college and everything. And they didn't know how they were going to do it. And they listened to Dilla's music in the background, and it was just like magic, and they were able to make it through. Yeah. And so they never forget what it was that they had that was separate and that was Dilla's music. So for somehow the man upstairs gave him a gift that has helped many, and the gifts that our youth today bring forth will save this world from a lot of things that it does not have to go through. And I truly believe that we have gifts waiting to be, just like flourished over this world and to make it a healing and safe and better place. And it begins with the youth that you're working with. And they will go on to do it too. And it will be a never-ending thing that the world will heal and be better because of the people that bring gifts to the world to share, like those that you are giving right now to the young people you're working with, and that they will take it and you can't erase what you learned and what you've been given to help you. And you will share it with someone. Like I said, it's not meant to be hoarded. These gifts is to share. Like they say, share love. This is a way to share love. It's to brighten the minds of people and to give them tools to work with to be a greater tomorrow. And that's what I say.
Absolutely, yeah. So, speaking of gifts, it's been such a gift to have you here, and so I'll end with one question for you, and then I'm going to talk conference logistics because we have a good amount of time for networking and coming up and saying hi. So, the J Dilla starter pack. If someone for me asked me, I'm like, well, start with donuts and we'll go from there. But what is Dilla's mom like? What do you have a favorite song, or where do you start people if maybe they're just getting into to Dilla's music? What would you recommend? What do you listen to in the, I read in an interview you listen to his music all the time still. And so what is a mom, where do you start?
There's no Dilla song that I don't like. Even the ones that words I would never repeat. Okay. But that's why I'm glad that we have instrumentals. And I do suggest to those that produces music, and I also, suggest to people that have some of the best records that are continually being done that please do an instrumental, because these are the records that I like to give to young people that are coming, about into their music, and parents that don't know who Dilla was or what this is about. I happen to have some best friends now who I've never met face to face, but we channel energies, and I kind of talk to the parents about what not to do to allow their child to be greater and better. And it's just going great, and I'm really proud that I have that experience to share with moms that are worried about the same things that I was worried about, okay? And a lot of them become best of friends, but they're housing genius children, but they're just afraid, and all I can say is patience, and don't overdo it. So one of my friends, Anna, said to me, well, Maureen, everything is going great, like you said, everything's the only thing I was worried about. Sometime my husband will come in from work and he'll go past that room and the music will be. She said, what do I do about that? And I said, Anna, headphones. She said, aha. So, so that means don't stop the magic. Get them some good headphones, noise canceling, headphones, and let him have a wonderful time in creating, because it's helped him not only, it helps him mentally, but he's had some health issues over the past years. He's come through surgeries and everything, flying colors, just with the thought of he's going to be able to get to his music. And so that's great. You bypass the depression. Mm-hmm. You bypass the things that a young adult, he just turned 18. You bypass all of the things that you haven't shared the last year and a half or 2 years. You haven't been able to be self because of pandemic and then illness and different things. And so these kids are really going through the ringer. But music is that tool that they can have, even when they can't get out the doors, they can't erase it, because it's there. They're part of it already. And so they have to learn how to replay,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's been such a joy having this conversation. Can we give a round of applause to Maureen?